Massive Eastern Group. So as a partner with a school, we usually do this kind of sessions with our combined audience. All right, and today's session is free, right? So yeah. So this is a disclaimer, right? This is me, right? Just to let you have a good understanding of where I come from. I'm a founder and creative director of Massive Eastern Group Private Limited, which is an education company. We supply IT, cybersecurity, cyber forensic, AI, blockchain, risk management trainings to schools and institutions, including many universities. I am also the CEO of Cyber4Sec Private Limited, which is a cybersecurity company. And my background is computer engineering, right? Back in the 1990s, yeah. And then, yeah, later on, I was also a lecturer in MBA, right? I also have an MBA from Doc. I have a few cert from Oxford and MIT, right? So I'm not a 100% academic person. I'm half-half, right? I'm half academic and half industry. So I've been running my companies, and I'm also an entrepreneur. We also help young people to start up their business in the technology space, right? We call this technopreneurship, right? And as part of what we do every day, right, we use cloud computing a lot, right? Just like when you're using Zoom, you are using a sort of a kind of cloud computing without any configuration, right? So we call these SaaS, right? Software as a service. Okay, so yeah, so this is my background. This is where I come from, right? So you can actually ask me any question later on during the Q&A session on business question, IT questions, cloud questions, you know, all sorts, right? Yeah. Okay. So in this short half an hour to 45 minutes, I try to cover as much as possible, right? I will start with an introduction of what really is cloud computing and why we are already at a mature state of cloud computing services, all right? And then I'll introduce to you some of the different types of cloud computing. And then hopefully we have about maybe 3 to 5 minutes for Q&A, right? Okay, good. So cloud computing, right? It has been around for about 15 years, right? Around plus minus a few years, right? Remember the old days when you are running a company, or you want to run a server, or you want to host something, you really have to build your computers, you could build your servers, and you need to have big data centers in your companies, right? Today, if you walk into many companies, you don't see all these big data centers anymore. They are all concentrated at the cloud service provider, right? So one of the main engines that changed the way we work, one of the ways that changed why you have this thing called the iPhone, right? And you probably store half your data on the cloud, right? There's a form of cloud computing. You store this on the iCloud. One of the main engines changing this, and why we end up with not having a lot of own data on our premises, is this thing called cloud computing, right? So cloud computing, as the name implies, is somewhere out there, right? Somewhere out in the cloud. It may not be in your country. It may be some other country, right? At a concentrated, right, centralized data centers, and then we share, right? We share the resources. So one of the key ingredient of cloud computing is the shared computing resources. So you don't have to overinvest, all right? And then of course there are different ways of using cloud. There are free cloud. There are also those that you subscribe and those that you actually own, right? Yeah. So yeah. So the cloud, today's internet cannot do without cloud. Yeah. It is like a fabric of the new internet today. And of course, we use it just like any IT peripheral, right? It has become a part of our life, right? And the gist of it is that we are connected to the cloud all the time, all right? Whether you are an individual, you're an enterprise, all right, or you are doing some sort of government services, you are connected to the cloud all the time. So we need to understand the fabric of the internet today, known as cloud computing, right? So we have a little video here. So I just play the video to give you a graphical look of what is cloud computing. Okay, so essentially, cloud computing is very much like, let me pick a few examples that you're familiar with, right? Like Uber, all right, like Grab, right? You don't really need to own a car, right? You don't really need to pay installment for the ownership of the car. And the same thing for IT today, right? We don't really need to buy a lot of servers, a lot of hard disks to host your own web pages, right? You can simply subscribe to a cloud service and pay maybe $10, $20 a month if you want to start small, and really have the web services up, and then you can serve your customers, right? So there are three important aspects of cloud computing today as compared to the cloud computing in the past, right? If you consider the use and application of cloud computing, one of the main reasons why we go to cloud is that it can scale, right? You pay as you go, right? It's just like Google advertisement, right? You pay more, you want more ads, and you pay more, and then you scale, right? So one of these engines, big data, right? We have so much data, and you might want to start small, right? So you can go to the cloud without a big investment into the infrastructure, like a traditional IT, right? So big data is one of the growth engine, and of course, blockchain make use on the cloud, right? You heard of blockchain, right? Yeah, you heard of people who are doing mining, right? Yeah. And you heard of people doing transaction using blockchain, all right? Making payment using blockchain, and they're all riding the cloud computing space. And of course, there are many others like cybersecurity, right? Like audit, like technology, privacy, right? Malware is also existing on the cloud, right? Yeah. So the cloud is not really very new. It's been there for a decade and two, but it is now going mainstream, right? But of course, there are people with concerns about privacy. For example, if today you wake up, right, you realize that most of us, we store our data on our computer, correct? On our computer, maybe 10, 20 years ago, we store most of our data on computer. But today, when I survey a few hundred people, the only answer I get is that most people actually store their private data more on the phone today rather than computer. And the phone is always connected to the cloud, right? And it is so easy, right? It's so easy to unknowingly leak data out, right? So there are concerns, when you go full-fledged cloud. So yeah, so there are decisions to be made, and you need to go and take a look at what you really want to use cloud computing for. Yeah. Okay, so let's take a look at the benefits of cloud computing first, right? First of all, when we pool computing resources together, we are making it very efficient, right? Because you don't have wastage. You only consume what you need, and for the service provider, it is very much like how Uber works, right? You consolidate all the computing resources, and you lease out to whoever needs. So we cut down wastages on both sides, whether it's the end user side, the subscriber side, or the service provider side, right? So we have efficiency, and then you pay as you go, right? Flexibility, and if you're a startup company, right, or a company that is on a growth path, right, it is also a strategic advantage to manage your cash flow, right, by only consuming what you need, right, and eliminate wastages. And therefore, you can align your IT with the business goals. All right? Yeah, so as part of efficiency, then of course, there are factors like accessibility. You can access the cloud from everywhere you want, cost savings, security. Security was a concern last time in cloud computing, but in recent years, the cloud service provider has done a good job, right? So you can safely put your data at the cloud service provider. But then you must still abide by the law, right? You must see whether, let's say you collect citizens' data, can you put your citizens' data on the cloud service providers that has servers in some other country that they are not allowed in your own law, right? So you need to check that out. And then and then there are also functions on the people also use cloud computing as a way for backing up your data, right? In case you lose your data, right? So point two, flexibility. Right, in flexibility, we talk about how well and how fast, particularly, you can scale your cloud. So imagine if you are running if you write an app, right, you write an app on your phone, and at first you may not know how many users will use your app, so you might not want to invest too much, right, into the bandwidth, right, into the data storage of your apps and things like that, right? So you invest a little bit, maybe you just pay a couple of hundreds of dollars every month. But if your business is good, right, then your apps might have millions of users using it. If you're using traditional IT system, right, it may break. By using cloud, you can scale easily. Just pay more, right? You get more CPU power, you get more memory, you get more bandwidth. So it can easily scale without breaking down, right? So far, so good. Yeah, right. Yeah, of course, there are many options. But today's session is not really about telling you which brand is good. It's more about giving you a good overview of the different types of cloud, so you can actually start your journey of cloud computing. And then, yeah, and then the control choices, right? How much control you really want over the cloud services that you subscribe to. Okay, and this is my favorite strategy advantage, right? If you're running a business like myself, right? We want to minimize costs, and we want the greater advantage when you roll out your services and product to the market, right? You do not want to have a sink cost on your infrastructure. So cloud is a natural partner, right, to a startup business or a small business or business on growth engine, right? You are growing so fast, and you really want IT to really gel so well with your business objectives. Okay, so that will increase productivity. Your cloud service providers can acquire and manage underlying cloud infrastructure. And it's also good for business mergers, right? But that's a topic for another day. And then you don't have to worry about your software licensing, right? Because all these are at the cloud service provider. You don't have to worry about too much about your software aging out, things like that, right? And of course, when you can manage your cost well, there's greater competitiveness between you and your competitor, right? And of course, different cloud service provider has already reached a mature state whereby one service on one can actually interop with another one. You can have a web server on one service provider, and you can have a database on another cloud service provider, and you can have another front end, you can have something else on a service provider, and they can now mix together, right? So you can pick the best of all the worlds. Okay, so yeah. So my guys have created a top 10 cloud service providers according to our opinion, right? Which are the top 10 service providers you can get your cloud services from these providers. But disclaimer, we are not related to any of them, right? So it's just for sharing purpose. Okay. Okay, so now I will formally introduce to you all the technical terms, right, that you see in the video. Yeah, so cloud computing is a kind of on-demand services, right? Just like the food that you order the utility that you pay, right, is on demand, right? You don't generate your own electricity, right? Most of you, right? You pay as you use. And therefore, you don't have to own the power station. In this case, you don't have to own the IT resources yourself, right? You just pay and subscribe to how much you really need, right? And there's a wide range of how much you need, like how much storage you need, how much bandwidth you need, how much computing power you need. It really depends on what kind of applications you're using, right? Yeah. And therefore, that will determine how much you really need on the CPU side, on the storage side, on the networking side, and on the bandwidth, also the knowledge of the people to manage these resources. All right. And then, yeah. And of course, if you're developing apps, cloud computing is so-called the de facto standard, right? Yeah, because your focus, for example, if you're writing apps or you are software and vendors, you do not want to care too much or invest too much into the infrastructure. You just want to make sure that your apps can really scale very well, right? So far, so good. Let me minimize my screen a little bit to check on you, right? Whether you are still there. And can you give me some signal, right? Like the chat. Yeah. Okay, I'm looking at the chat right now. So far, so good. Okay, good. All right. So I'll simplify things, right? So if you want to, there are a lot of different types of cloud service providers. All right. My job today is to help you understand the main 3 types of cloud service providers, right? If we generalize them and then we classify them into 3 different baskets, right? The first type is known as the IaaS, also known as infrastructure as a service, right? Now, infrastructure as a service will not be suitable for most people, but it is suitable, for example, for an organization because we started with a data center ourselves. Right, we have you seen a data center, right? You walk in the room, computing room, right? Some places we call this computer room with racks, with servers, routers, switch, and all those things, right? And then you got to pay a lot of electricity for maintaining the place, to cool it down, right? To make sure that you have UPS, and it's like the computing room you see in movies and dramas. So it is costly, right? So when we move on to the cloud, we can take away all these from our physical maintenance and put these at the cloud service provider, right? We move our servers there, we move our database there, we move our code there, we move all our services there, right? That's called infrastructure as a service. And then we pay how much we actually use, right? Okay, so there are quite a number of IaaS cloud service provider. Some of these you know them quite well, right? Google, Microsoft Azure, AWS, IBM Cloud, Oracle Cloud, right? Okay. Today, I think there are a lot more smaller ones, right? But those that are bigger and famous are probably those that you already heard of them several times, right? Because they really have millions of customers that are using them, right? The first that will come into picture is AWS, right? They have a lot of features, right? As of our updates, there are about 175 over features, right, that you can use as part of the clientele, right? So now we'll show you a sample of how you can. and there is Azure for those who are more Microsoft fans. Okay, once you are in the dashboard, then yeah. Okay, Google Cloud, yeah, you might be fine. Okay, and then there's Oracle as well. But I'm not going to show you everything yet because they are more or less the same. They probably ask you for a credit card, but they will not activate until the trial period is over, right? So just be careful how long they give you the trial period, right, for free that you can try. Okay. Oracle probably I will skip because it's going to take too long, right? So infrastructure as a service summary. it's a self-service model, and it is suitable for probably those who are already running their own IT centers and they want to make sure that they have the elasticity and also the cost saving involved, all right, and not having to maintain the physical equipment themselves. Right? That is the advantage. Then we have the second type, known as PaaS, also known as PaaS. Right? Some people call it PaaS, some people just pronounce it up as PaaS. It means that this is a platform as a service. Right? Platform as a service is it has the middle tier on top of the infrastructure. All right, it's a complete development and deployment environment. If you are a programmer, for instance, then you don't really want to worry about infrastructure. You may not even want to worry too much about the middle tier. All right, and that's where you write a code and you want it to be readily available and deployed worldwide. Right, so you will purchase a PaaS, right, which gives you the resources you need to pay as you go and access these services just through the internet. All right. So what are some of these PaaS? Heroku, Aventis, and Firebase are some examples. Right. So Heroku is a cloud platform that uses services supporting several multi programming languages. So if you're a programmer, you know what I'm talking about, right? So so if you are programming and you want your code to be on the fly, right? And you want to test out your code on a running servers, you just need to subscribe to a PaaS service, right? Okay, and if you are doing mobile and web development, then Firebase is one that will provide you the cloud infrastructure. So you just need to concentrate on your mobile application development and let the cloud service provider do the rest. How easy it is to set up, and then you can start programming, right? Okay, and then Aventis is built on the firm foundation of Google, right? Kubernetes engine, right? Okay, so to summarize this part, PaaS is a model that is very good for developers who wants the scale of the cloud computing resources at scale, right? And as long as you have the internet connection, it is possible to build an entire application live, right? Because you write on PaaS, right? Without waiting for the infrastructure or the platform to be ready. Yeah, so you just need to focus on your application. And this is particularly suitable for organizations who are developing their own applications, right? And then we have the third type, known as SaaS, right? Software as a service, which is basically very good for end users, right? You don't really have to even worry about the programming part because you are just using the services, right? So there are a lot of SaaS around. There's Zendesk for customer service, there's Salesforce for sales management, there's Dropbox for, I guess you already use some of these services, right, for sharing of files. Okay. Zendesk is basically a CRM, customer relationship management company. So they allow the customers, enterprise customers, to just log in into the CRM and manage their customer service online, right? Okay. And of course, some of you might already, your organization might already be using a SaaS like Salesforce, right? Which basically helps company to keep track of their sales, marketing, and customer relationships. Yeah, of course, Dropbox, if you are not... So just a glimpse of, I can't show you everything, it's going to take too long, right? Yeah, so SaaS is basically a service on demand, right? So when you need a service, you just pay, you get. You don't even need to worry what is IT. It's so transparent that way, right? So it is a software made for you, you log in, right? You don't need to really care about how they make the software, you just need to use the service, all right? And that's classify a product as a SaaS, right? So most of these are on subscription model, and this will lower the total cost of ownership over time because you only pay snippets or you pay per account, right? To the service provider. Okay, and of course, the job of updating the software is entirely by the SaaS provider. You don't even need to click any button on update my software because you're not in charge of that, right? You are just an end user. You pay and they deliver the service to you. If they meet your objective, maybe for closing more customers, then you pay them more and investment. If not, you can shift to another SaaS provider, right? So these are the three different main models of a cloud computing models, right? And it caters to different needs for different people and for different organizations, right? And one way or the other, we are already using cloud on various levels, even as individuals. Okay, so yeah, so far so good. I have reached the Q&A section, right? Let me see if you have any questions. Open up the chat box. Okay, anyone got any burning question you want to ask? Okay, if not, I'll show you. I prepared a bonus for you, right? Let me blow up the screen bigger first. Okay. We have done up a comparison. I need to adjust the screen a little bit. Okay. I got a question there. What is it? Philip was asking, in the current system in Office, we have a file server, a mail server, etc. Yes, will the cloud provide this? Yes, of course, right? Yeah, but the file server and the mail server was an outsourced, it was maintained by an outsourced IT, right? Yeah. Or do you maintain this yourself? Yeah, you maintain yourself, right? So if you're maintaining this yourself and you don't have it's a very good question. You don't have a ongoing contract with any provider, right? You can switch easily to this field. Okay, you can switch easily to a SaaS model, right? That will be the easiest because you just need to port over your data to a service provider, right? Typically in CSV format or in Excel format, right? Then you can actually run it there. But remember, SaaS, it means that you might have less control of the IT systems, right? So if you don't feel comfortable, especially if your data consists of a lot of confidential data, right? And you want, and you are techy enough to maintain the infrastructure, the cloud infrastructure yourself, then you go for IaaS, all right? But if you are thinking of, for example, you are moving on to control all your data on an app that you are going to develop, then you go for a test. Yeah. Right now, what you're having here, in Philip's case, it's on-premise. Yeah, you are having everything in your office. Yeah, right. Mm. Yeah, there's one more question. Does IaaS provide software such as Microsoft Office? No, right? If you are talking about your Microsoft Office 365, that is considered a SaaS. Yeah. All right. Okay, I'm going to show you, I'm going to switch my screen to the Aventis website. Just give me a moment. Okay. All right. So whoever invites you, right, I think it should be the Roshini, right, from Aventis. Today's preview will eventually lead to this course, right? Fundamentals of Cloud Computing. Live stream on 18 June, right? We're doing this online, but it will be a full day course with a graduating cert, right? And we will be going in depth on the resources that you need to prepare to move your data to the cloud, right? And of course, you need to find out what is your objective for doing so, right? Because there are always pros and cons in the decision-making process, okay? So we will do that in the course, right? And then we'll go in depth into probably the advantages and disadvantages of the various cloud service providers, because no one is perfect and no company is perfect, right? Yeah. So, but what we want is a good fit between your business, your data, right, and also the cloud provision. Okay. So I'll paste this link inside the chat box so that you can follow it. I think Zoom has recently updated the software. It used to be unclickable link. Now it should be clickable. Yeah. Okay, I'll need to send to everybody. Right. Got it? Okay, so yeah. Going to switch back to the PowerPoint slides. Okay, that's all for this quick session. If you have any more burning question you want to ask, I would suggest that you approach the relevant Aventis guys, right? They are our front end for this particular sales product. Okay, but if you are keen to find out more about other things, right? You can always find us on the Facebook, Twitter, online, Google, everywhere. Yeah, we are on SES. We are on the search engine SES. Okay. Yeah, that's all for this session. Hope you have a great time learning, and I'll see you inside the. See you online, right, on the cloud, and also probably I hope to see you on 18 June 2020. Yeah. Okay, so now I'll pass the session back to Aventis.
Okay, so this is the end of the session. We will be uploading this to YouTube, so I will send up an email sometime this week or next week with the link to our YouTube channel. So that will be all. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.